Move the whole.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Barry Kostrinsky. It's March 28th. We have Christina Straight, who's going to be speaking and presenting. As well, we're going to have Mo Kelly, our model. She's on a few screens if anybody wants to draw. And again, the idea there is, can you draw? Can you listen? Can you speak? Do they feed each other, or do they almost compete for limited space? It's an interesting experiment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So thank you, Mo. These talks are captured, they're recorded, and they're put on my YouTube channel. So feel comfortable to see any past talks or anything you like on the YouTube, which you can get to through my website. I want to welcome you, Christina. Thank you for taking your time, and for everybody here participating. I will say next week we have Judith Margolis. She's coming in from Israel, and she'll be presenting. Similarly, I found Judith through Facebook, through social media, and Christina, I saw one image of yours on Instagram, and I was like, that's an artist I want to get to know more about. I looked through your images, and within no time, we really set this up. Thank you for being flexible. I'm going to hand the talk over to you. Everybody, you know our format. Feel free to make a comment in the chat or out loud. Say anything you like and just sort of engage any question you have at all. So again, thanks for coming, Christina.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Christina Straight. I live on Cape Cod, West Yarmouth specifically. I live and work here. I'm in my studio right now. It's a little small, but looking to get a bigger studio eventually. Right now, I'm working on a series of paintings, primarily working with oil paint, medium to large scale. Just as like a quick rundown of what I've been up to, I had a solo show in Central Massachusetts, and that was in July, and that was called Divergent Ground. I have some work that I can show you from the show. I also participated in the other art fair in Brooklyn, and I had a solo show in addition to that in Brooklyn too, on Lorimer Street. So I have some images from those events and what I'm working on currently, which I'm really excited about. Let's see.
Christina, where did you study art?
I am self-taught. I came about being a painter in a pretty interesting way. I mean, I have a dance background. I danced on a high level, and I was always interested in the arts and all sorts of avenues. I had a lot of hobbies. Like I dabbled after I stopped dancing, and nothing really stuck. And I really felt compelled, and like it sounds surreal almost, but I woke up one day and I felt like I need to paint, and it was pretty. I took off running. It was pretty intense, like right from the start.
Very nice.
So yeah, I've always been interested in art. My dad's an auctioneer. He owns an auction house. So when he was looking at like early Americana, I was looking at modern art and mostly like the abstract expressionists. I really gravitated towards, like, if I'd see a print or something like that, and modern furniture and things like that. So I was always like aware of art and learning about art, but I never painted until I painted. So I think I apply a lot of the creative thinking that I developed through dance, through choreography, because I was primarily a modern dancer when I danced on a high level. So I think I applied that kind of construction and thinking towards the painting when I like attacked it, as far as like composition and the rhythm of it, things like that.
Well, you're making my job easy. I was going to ask you, how did your dance background influence your painting? But once you said dance, and then I see the paintings, I do sort of get it. Do you want to share screen, Christina?
Yeah, definitely.
Who's that guy anyway?
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we see all of the files.
Where should I start?
In the beginning,
What
I'm
My
sorry,
early-
that was just religious overtones. No, what image, whatever image you'd like to start with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I started painting when I moved to this house. This is in West Yarmouth. A lot of times people ask me if I am influenced by my backyard because I'm right on the water. I think so. It's pretty tranquil. I guess I shouldn't be so quick, but that's just a little bonfire, and I have a nice view. It's brackish water, so it's, you know, fresh and salt. There's a lot of wildlife. This is an osprey. This is me and my dad.
Just give the images a few more seconds.
Oh, sure.
We're quick lookers, but just a
Yeah.
few more seconds, but you are setting sort of the backdrop of your landscapes. I certainly saw it in that first image.
Yeah. And I'll tell you more about, I was influenced by my surroundings for my solo show called Divergent Ground, which was at Starlight Gallery in Southbridge, Massachusetts. And I can, I'll show you some images from that also. But this is just like, this is the beginning. I did a little plein air painting. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm too quick. This is before I got going for my solo show. And I certainly was influenced by the vegetation and the wildlife. And it really does tie into my process as a painter, which I can tell you about when we're ready. So I'll show you, this is the very, very beginning. This is when I can show you the very first painting I ever did.
Okay.
The first one. It is not anything like what I do now, but you got to start somewhere and you get somewhere else because you start somewhere. So just in the beginning, I tried a lot of different things. I was working on different techniques, color theory. I explored a lot. So this is the very beginning. This is a little bit, it's funny after, you know, years pass and I'm like, oh, that's a little Joan Mitchell-ish. And I don't think I knew who Joan Mitchell was yet. And it's like interesting to reflect and see like similarities. And some of the mark making that I made early on, I'll see come up now. And it's a little bit muscle memory, but some things just stick even from the beginning. Like my brush work is different now. I know more about what I'm doing, but the intention to use a visual tool or just a visual aspect of life like painting, that's a continuous thing in my work. So it started from the beginning where I really wanted to paint things I wouldn't really be able to put to words. I think that's what really, you know, grabbed me from the start.
Can you go back to the one before this? It was a pink one.
Yeah, these are all, this was an acrylic on canvas. Yep.
very nice use of the black, and you're pushing the positive and negative space, and the black is very strong and it's working. These works that you flash us through very quickly went very complicated in a simple way. Meaning you showed a lot of maturity quickly, and you're doing it in a form that's not shouting complexity, but you're pushing a lot of different colors. You're getting them to work. You're getting a lot of space. You're keeping a playfulness. It's interesting work.
Thanks. I think I was experimenting with like a hard edge, a hard line, and also the freedom and the movement, like as the composition continues. I don't know tell me when you want to stop.
Give it a little more time. Give it like 8
Okay.
seconds each.
Okay, so
Christina, can I ask a
Yes.
question?
yeah.
Do you find
Hello.
that you move through the picture plane the way you would a dance floor? Do you know what I'm saying? Like
I do know what you're saying. Instead of myself as an individual moving through the picture plane, I think of the layers and the building up of a painting. And this is now. I don't know if I was always thinking about it then. I think I was just in the beginning. It was like impulse, mark making, like intuitive. But now, like I do realize I'm instructing it like how I would as a choreographer, with different layers of movement. So it's not like just myself interacting, but it's also like the dynamicism of the work could be similar to how you would choreograph.
I'm going to mute a few speakers just because I'm not sure where we're getting the distortion. So if you do want to speak, just, I guess, click appropriately. I think I got it.
This was just, in the beginning, you want to try everything. And this is all part of me.
That's a very pleasing work. And this is the first drawing you showed where you have the basic geometric breakup. That's that tendency expressing here. And often as a painter myself, I think to myself, do I work in a dashing linear motion and strokes? Or do I do a different brush stroke that creates more blended forms? They're two different things. And I think many artists struggle with how do you blend it, or do you do it one way or the other?
Right. Yeah, it's cool to look back on my early work, because just like I do now, I didn't limit myself. I didn't set out and say, I'm only going to do portraits. I'm only going to do landscapes. Or I didn't, right off the bat, I didn't try to, kind of box myself into like a finished product. Like I'm only about this. So I'd be, I didn't know where it would go. So I tried everything, and I still have that approach, but the way that I set out to create a series of works, because I could paint a lot of different ways, that is the one thing that I am in control of from the start, is how I approach it. And then like, of course, color and things like that. But I can get into like my process now, which is of course much different from the beginning. But that is one thing that has stayed the same, is I don't set out to make work very specific. I like for it to arrive at a place. And it's like an ongoing relationship I have with the canvas, a back and forth. And I've just gotten more experienced in how to build upon that relationship I have with the work as it's going. And part of that is really allowing, destruction and embrace the destruction of a part of a painting, because it's all, for me, it's almost like sculpture where I'm like building it up and then taking layers away. And the internal structure usually starts with a lot of mark making and things like that, but where it starts, it could completely change, but I still like feel the bones of the painting in the work, even after it's gone somewhere completely different.
Christina, Babs Reingold asked, how long ago did you start painting?
I started painting right before the pandemic. It was 2020. That was before the pandemic, right? Was it 2019?
No painting classes at all?
No,
That's very impressive.
but I made sure I learned the materials, and I have painter friends that I consulted with and stuff. I make sure it's archival because I don't want to put anything out there that's not.
Yeah, it's good. Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay, there you are. All right. Yeah, I was getting into shapes, and I liked from the beginning. I know this is an early one because I signed it on the front. I don't sign my paintings on the front. Not
Can I ask you
anymore.
why you don't?
I think it's distracting for the work that I do now.
I'd agree with you. I agree with that.
I appreciate, like, I appreciate older paintings that have signatures, and I'm so used to seeing it. But for the work that I'm creating now, I think I need there to be a reason for something to be there, like unless it happened by chance but I just, it doesn't feel right for my work now.
Christina, do you have
Yeah.
titles for your works?
I do. These are very early works, like some of the first paintings I ever did. So I didn't title them completely. This one I didn't title because it was like this was the first 2 months I started painting. But
This one's very interesting, what you've got going on with all the space, the back and forth in the space. Yeah. Mhm. And so all the other ones you showed us at this point weren't really titled, is because we're in the early work right now? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah, this is all
Okay.
me. This was me learning. I did sign it. I didn't title it. Because I was learning about composition and shapes and learning completely like on my own how composition works for me or how to challenge it. And with this one, there's a lot going on. And I was really interested in building up a lot of different things and then having to make sense of the chaos by eliminating different parts of the painting. So I did this for a while. So this is acrylic, and then there's charcoal. So I would like sketch over it to see how far I could push the shape.
You said you did this 2 months into painting. I don't think Picasso got that far in 2 months of painting. It was pretty good. You've got an analytic cubist work in here. You've got space receding and fractured picture planes, a very organic, strong, you have a graphic hand and a painterly hand at the same time. You're reinforcing your borders. You're doing a lot of things that says you learned a lot in school, but you learned it all on your own.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, what artists were you looking at? Just artists that you liked in 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned one or two already, but just throw some names out of curiosity.
Yeah. I was just getting interested. I was just learning about Gorky. also de Kooning, his earlier work with, I don't remember the name of it. So yeah, Gorky, de Kooning, mostly New York School artists, Grace Hardigan. I looked at so many images. I felt so completely in love with everything that painting entailed. Yeah, so I think I went straight to the stuff that drew me right there. And then I found that like, oh, well, this artist is connected to this one. And then I knew who Larry Poons was. And, you know, it was interesting. Yeah, Gorky, for sure, the beginning.
And
I immediately saw, oops, I'm sorry, I immediately saw a bit of de Kooning right in this one. That was
Yeah.
my first original reaction. Mhm.
I feel like by looking at de Kooning's paintings so much, I feel like I almost like uploaded like some of the like I wanted to know like how he got there. So I would just look at his paintings for so long to try to figure out like what he must have done, like how many layers were underneath to get to where he was. So I would look at images where he was in the studio and he was just working on something and it wasn't finished. I'd be like, oh, okay. So he has like a little bit of like a structure behind that. And then he, you know, gets his Italian, what's that Italian dressing? I can't believe he used Italian dressing.
oh, I didn't know he did.
Yeah. So funny. So and this is just a little drawing. Oh, trying, you know, playing around with opening up the space more, using different materials. I think there's graphite, charcoal, acrylic. Playing around with the space. I never really wanted to look like I was painting a specific style or anything. So I just like looked at a lot of images of art that I love and people I was drawn to and things I didn't like too, just to learn about like brushwork and stuff like that. But until you do it, you don't know. And you just have to experiment on your own.
Good point. Nancy Grace asked, can you talk about the connection to what you saw through your father's profession and how that might have played a role in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, fast forward to the present day, I'm not, okay, I'll say this. I'm really fortunate that I have that experience of what it's like to be an art dealer, antique dealer. And I wasn't that myself, but I was exposed to that. And it's not necessarily a scary place. And I think a lot of artists, you know, unless they know somebody that does that for work, they might be intimidated by like the galleries, the dealers and things like that, but it's a business and that can be separate or it can be part of what you do. There's a spectrum of how much you want to identify with the art market, things like that. But as far as just being a kid and growing up around it, I saw a lot of different work and like I was able just to see, oh, this is a watercolor from an unknown artist in the Berkshires, not a listed artist. It didn't sell for a lot. I asked my dad if I could keep it. So like things like that happened. So I was able to like at a young age see and feel art that people really put a lot into, and they were unknown artists, but it was like, it's really special regardless if you're listed or not. I mean, it's what you do. So but I hope that
Thank
answers
you.
the
That was
question.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was a nice connection.
This is the last, let me say, Yeah, this is the last of the early work that I presented. I've never, this is still in my studio. It's in the corner. I never did anything with it. It's acrylic on canvas. It was the last acrylic painting I made before I learned how to use oil paint. There's movement.
Are you working straight abstract? Are you working off a landscape? Are you working off imagery in your mind, a face? How do you sort of originate your composition?
When I was first starting with this, like
Yes,
in the old days, it was always from, actually, it's always from my mind. Yeah, I never work from an image or a landscape. It's always working from my mind and without without a catalyst for why I'm doing it. I want it to be like as pure as it can be. So like I'll notice things about my psyche as I'm painting it. But yeah, I don't like, with any series of work, I can change how I approach it. But as far as deciding like, oh, I'm gonna set out to do this or that, I don't like to confine myself to any specific thing. But I have practiced doing things like a landscape or a portrait, things like that. But like for the work, that's my work. I want it to develop on its own. And there's nothing wrong with having like a set plan or saying like, I want to paint what it feels like to miss somebody. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think for me, there's more to it. Like there's a lot of layers of myself in it. I can't make anything that simple. I don't know. But what was I gonna say?
no, you follow the process of the painting and respond to the marks you make and the color, and it's sort of a dance of line and color and form.
Yeah.
That evolves as the more you do. And I know with dance, emotion is important. Would you say the emotion you have during the day plays into the work that you end up making? Although again, this is older work. As far
Well,
back as 19.
I took, oh yeah, this is at Katuitt Center for the Arts. I did take one class.
That's all it
Uh,
takes.
That was a great class too. So let me just put this one up. Okay. So for instance, for my solo show, Divergent Ground, this is the first time I ever did this and I kept going with it. I completely cleared my head before every time I started painting. So I would take almost like meditation. I would take about 30 minutes and completely clear my mind the best I could. I'd walk into the studio and start painting, and I would notice things based on where I was clearing my mind. So it happened to be the summer at that point, and I was out in my backyard, and I would notice as the paintings evolved, more vegetation, a lot of green. I could sometimes the horizon, like right where the water meets the sky, there would be a line in the painting. So I was definitely influenced by that time I spent, clearing my mind. I carried with me into the studio, but I didn't set out to make paintings about nature necessarily. I do have a statement I could read you from that show if you're interested. Do you
Sure.
want to hear it?
Yeah, while you just leaving it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Divergent Ground is a collection of work that explores the identity of self in relation to the natural world, revealing concurrent symbols thematic to signs of synchronicity. Produced within the last year, the collection is composed of oil paintings and varying size works in acrylic, household enamel, and charcoal. A critical part of my practice involves the pursuit of achieving my clearest form of consciousness before I handle the materials and physically start painting. This allows for the space needed for my unconscious to actualize its emergence. Seeking truth and clarity, I found it most beneficial to immerse myself in nature. I practiced this every day before I painted the works included in this exhibition. And I said, most often I started painting purposely without a plan. I embrace the unknown of a blank canvas. The possibilities are not overwhelming, but invigorating. Usually I start with intuitive mark making, gaining momentum to lively brush strokes with alternating moments of stillness. The painting starts to show its structure, and it is at that point in which I feel I have permission from the painting to push further. As the work progressed, I started to see biomorphic shapes and forms representative of geological structures and flowing water. Sorry, I'm seeing outwardly and inwardly simultaneously. I let the tension build between the abstraction and representational for this series of work. A shape that appears to look like a fragile flower about to open also looks as if it's about to burst from the energy of a bold gestural brushstroke coming into contact with it. So at this point, I become aware of the synergy that's involved with the external landscape where I meditate, merging with the internal landscape of my psyche. As the abstraction and representational are juxtaposed, a system presents itself. It's chaos and order in a world within itself. So I was really using my surroundings. It was definitely it wasn't on purpose, but it grew into that.
Christina, that was very well put to words.
Oh, thank you.
Very well, describing the process, and yours specific, but also general, what a lot of artists go through.
Thanks.
I hate to keep going back, but what was your poetry like? Or your dance like? I'm sorry, you said it was modern dance. What were you, what was some of your favorites, I guess?
For dance, my favorite dancing, like style.
Yes, or piece.
It was modern dance, and I really liked improvisational dance. I studied one summer at Bates for the Bates Dance Festival. It was like it was all day. It was like from 8 a.m. until like 10 or 11 at night. And we just danced the whole day for 3 weeks in really hot weather. And I learned a lot about improv there. And so from there, I really gravitated towards like improvisational. And then setting the piece, I really liked choreographing and dance and just being a dancer. I stopped dancing. I didn't want to teach because I liked dancing and creating so much. But it just it worked. It was a very seamless kind of thing where it just kind of dissipated. But I appreciate dance. I appreciate the arts a lot.
Well, improvisational would be a good way to describe this piece right here. Somehow it has that sort of feel. Are you familiar with Kandinsky at all? Vasily?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Sort of earlier work has a lot of movement.
Yeah. That was the piece that was on the flyer for the show. I have let me see. Yeah.
Often when you present for public commissions, you need to present a very large image. Christina, your works, they're very active, and yet when they're together, even though they're more active, they're somehow cohesive in an odd way. And so
Yeah,
you could very much present for a public arts project, you know, a 20-foot, 30-foot wide piece by really just putting together 10 or 20 canvases.
yeah.
I mean, it's a big task, but if you can actually mock it up on your computer.
Yeah, well, yeah, this was my first show. So I struggled a little bit as far as, well, how much do I want them to look like one another? Should I use all the same, like, similar color palette? I want it to be cohesive. And then I just said, like, let them grow, let them do their thing. And it came together really well. And the energy, I got a lot of great feedback, and the energy from the paintings people felt. And that was, I mean, what more could I ask for my first show? It was pretty awesome. That was getting ready. That's my dad by the box truck. Here's another grouping, just a different angle. I have the paintings by themselves too. This is me in front of one of the two largest ones I did. It was the largest one I did to date at that time. And that is called Far to Find, oil on canvas. It's 48 by 60 inches. This was an exciting piece for me to do because I wanted to put two big pieces in the show. And this ended up having quite a connection with me. Actually, it brought me back to my childhood. I noticed the way I was painting felt so much like how I would look out the sliding glass door in the house that I grew up in. I grew up in Brookfield, Mass, and in the woods. So like this really, I couldn't believe when different aspects of the painting started emerging. I was like, this is what I looked at my whole childhood. And it was pretty cool. And when my brother, my dad, my mom saw it, they recognized like that being the connection also. So this was me getting ready, trying different layers out prior to the actual show. So I had worked on some drips and things like that, scraping away and just, getting used to the materials I used. This is me at my show. This is before the show in my studio. And that was a Q&A at Divergent Ground. And this was, so the painting on the left, which is on my right in the photo, but on the left, the bigger one, that was, that's called On Land They Say It's Lost. That's oil on canvas and 60 by 48. It achieved a kind of almost like a multi-dimensional feeling based on where you looked at it. Like I felt like I was underwater. And one of the best compliments someone gave me, or nicest feedback they gave me at the show, was they pointed at that painting and they were like, I want to be there. That looks like a place I want to visit. I was like, cool. So I showed that, that was the first time I showed the piece at Divergent Ground, and then also in Brooklyn. It's my studio. That's me just getting some marks down. That's the show. Another picture of the show. Getting ready for the show. Experimenting. I went hiking a lot, like throughout like my teen years and things. I really like camping, and I noticed as the paintings evolved, like it was just very nature oriented. And then there was also an aspect of Greek mythology that I started to see. And it happened with, let me find the painting where this really stood out. Okay, so this was like this was the first completed one, and it's called Narcissus. So I wasn't very familiar with Greek mythology, not like I should be. I read a lot. But it was like in school, I feel like I was out sick for like that week or something. And it's something I'm so interested in now. But at the time, this mark, which looks like a lotus or a flower, I was just like, where did this come from? It happened by chance. And then like, it really felt like a reflection in the painting. And so I looked up the story of Narcissus and Echo, and I'm sure everyone knows the story, but the one flower emerges when he dies. There's two different versions of it. And I thought it was pretty cool that had happened. And also in another painting, there was some like embedded symbolism that I recognized. And once I learned more about it, I got pretty into like, well, wait, that's like that. This is like that. This is interesting. But it wasn't set out to go in that direction, but I certainly saw a lot of things that I could reference Greek mythology. This is called Cast. It's absolutely like, it brings me to my backyard and the water, and almost like what would be underneath the water. Just some layers and movement. It was interesting working with those dimensions because it was a little bit longer. They're taller canvas than I was used to. So it was interesting to fill the space like that. This is a small one. Spirits of the Green Sahara. I have two images of it. Let's see which one's better. Is this a big one for you? Can you see it?
That's a good one.
Okay. This isn't this I noticed through this show getting ready for it, because I noticed some Greek mythology references, and then I also noticed in this one, this is the first of other ones that this had happened with. I had just learned about how the Sahara Desert was a jungle at one point, and it must have been in my brain when I was painting it, because I started to see pyramids in the top left corner, and it was somewhere in my head, and yeah, I just let myself go and paint. But I ended up making that connection once it was finished, that it could have been a little bit influenced by that information, because I don't know, I think that's crazy. I never knew that.
It's great use of yellow. Yellow as a highlight is often an artist's favorite, and you're really punching it there with different yellows, and of course the light blue. And you're good at bringing your dark from the top right to offset all that action. That's important. Otherwise it gets washed out. You're very well painted.
Thank you. This was almost like a rainy day painting. This is called Man at the Mirador, and I painted this because I was upset. I was upset that they weren't going to let Philip Guston show at his work show at the MFA. So it's the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. They ended up letting the show happen, but there was so much red tape because of the controversial aspects of his work. And the things I heard about it was making me so frustrated, because if you dive deep enough to learn about the artist and why he made what he made, it is in context, and that allows, of course, for a lot of sensitivity on the matter. Absolutely. But I just didn't want him to get passed off so quick. I really wanted to see his work, and it ended up being an amazing show. So this was
as crazy as it sounds, all the controversy only got more eyes on Philip Guston, an artist
Yeah,
had so much eyes on since his famous show of the Boots at the Whitney in like, I want to say 78 or 1980. That was a critical show, and he is just in everybody's mind. And yes, it brought up the larger issue of freedoms and what you can say, or if there are things you can't say. And of course, his relationship with those issues were totally ignored. And then all that text at the show, that was a time a lot of exhibitions were being stopped, and it raises questions of freedoms and also a question of, I know it's a hard word to say, but what's right? So it brought up some good issues. I was going to ask you before, when I'm looking at your colors, Christina, I wanted to make this statement. I'm like, no, I'm not right. But then you sort of walked into it. What I was going to say is, I see two colorations. I see a coloration where you move very bright and a
mhm,
lot of brights. And then I see another coloration where you use a bright, but you also create a tone that's,
mhm.
I don't want to use the word sad, but it creates a tone that's quite the opposite of, bright sunlight in a
Yeah.
red tone. And that's when you then describe this as being a reaction and you're feeling.
Mhm.
Would you say there is some relationship to your moods and your feelings that generate your color palette, or does it go vice versa? Does painting change how you feel?
No, if a painting goes quick enough, and I like for it to go quick, when it's driven by emotion, it starts off like they all do right now, where I don't know where it's headed, but when I'm painting it and I'm me and I'm experiencing life as I go to the studio every day. So when I acknowledge that there's emotion absolutely driving the painting, I would like to complete it as fast as I can, because that's where it came, that's where it was born from. Even if it changed that moment so quick. So this was done quickly. And yeah, the color reflects that, like almost like it should be brighter. And there's columns, like I wanted it to feel like almost like there's an institution and there's a place, or like the fall of Rome in a way. But like all I was thinking was, I was painting and I had the emotion, and I was thinking bright red, and I was also thinking of things toppling down because one person says something. Like you can never let one person have that much power to make decisions in which everything can fall, kind of like a dictator. So yeah, the color definitely plays a big role, especially when I make a quick painting. If the painting's a little slower, the color could change based on where the painting's headed. And there's a lot of scraping away at layers too. So, but when I do a quick one, the color is very much important. That was the one that was on the flyer, and that's called Ash Tree Honey. I like to think of it after I was finished. I was like, where is this place? And this is acrylic on canvas. It was one of the 2 acrylic paintings I did for the show. And I pictured like woodland nymphs living there and things like that. And then my mind was like, wow, more Greek mythology. But that was just my imagination, like as I pictured myself in this place. The highlights were interesting to do. I felt compelled to keep going and keep the movement kind of playful. Like there's pockets of little like hideaways, and I liked how that one came out a lot. Let me know.
You have a lot of depth. You're using that lead diagonal sort of at the bottom middle, brings you in and back. You have a lot of movement. You you're not a flat painter. You create it with color and line, but you're not, you're not putting it right in our face. You sort of have to look, and then your paintings open up to landscapes, rocks, formations, figurative. Good abstract work will read many ways. You can see the influence of nature, on you, in the best ways.
Thank you.
So what's to come, Christina?
What?
What's to come? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Oh, go slow. Let us take a minute.
Oh, are we running out of time?
No, we have more time. We have like 5 minutes more, and we can
That's
always.
it?
Yeah.
I should show you my newer work. This is my first
Okay.
show.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay. Well, I'll go quick as I'm talking. I'll just show you a little bit. This was the show I did in Brooklyn. Lots of symbolism. See how much more symbol it. All right, I'm going too fast. So these were full. They're all softer. So this followed the show that I was just showing you, Diverging Ground. This show is called A Way to a Daydream.
Yes.
And it was like a dreamy kind of escape. A little bit surreal, softer. And I was definitely finding things out about my psyche, possibly, and just the tone was calmer. This is called Glass House. This is before it was in the lighting and everything, but I was experimenting with glazing techniques and things like that to achieve not like dynamic but soft.
Were you? I'm trying to figure out what your relationship to water is. Were you a snorkeler? I mean, any
You see a
relationship?
lot of water. Well, I grew up going, like, my uncle had a boat, and like we would go, like I would come to Cape Cod every summer when I was a kid, because it's 2 hours away from where I grew up. So like I would look forward to going to the ocean all the time. But I'm not I don't fancy myself a very good swimmer. I could do enough, probably, like, not to drown.
But it was a good memory of going away every year to the beach.
Yeah. Can you see this one okay?
Yes.
Okay, this is where I believe I arrived at a place that was important to me as a painter. I could probably elaborate on that, but this was shown in Brooklyn at a different show this was in November. And when I painted this, I knew something had happened. So let me just pull it.
How could you describe what would you say happened?
Yeah. So I think finally I felt like things came together where I had movement, I had shapes, I had like some linear, like hard edge shapes. I also had biomorphic organic movement, and it made my eyes wander throughout the canvas. And I'll give you the dimensions. It's called Someday Far, 48 by 36 inches. I loved looking at this. When I finished this, I had no doubts at all. Like, I was just like, this was the first painting where I've really loved a lot of my work, but I felt like I hit it. And when you see it in person, like, for me, you feel it. And I got a lot of good feedback from it. But even if I didn't, I wouldn't have cared, because, like, this was a place that I wanted to be at. And it was just the combination of layers and like kind of muted tones, and the way that my eyes moved around the canvas was special. So I really like felt confident in the way that I approached this piece, and it had like, I could see that everything I had been doing had been kind of leading up to this way of painting. So that's, and then this is another one I did for that show. This is called Madeline's, like the Proust story of the cookie, because I saw the shape of a Madeline throughout the work, the colors. It's like whimsical and kind of fresh, kind of feels gardeny. That was a bright photo. And this is more like what it looks like without really bright lights. This is called Osprey. It's 36 by 36. I was in the same show in Brooklyn. I'm going to show you this one. This is a smaller one. This is called, let's see here. That's called Swing. First painting like that I ever felt really emotional about, like a lot of people, was a Rothko, and I didn't set out to have like the horizontal lines like that, but I just thought of Rothko because I love Rothko. This is me at the show, flyer, it's a video. Just the booth there. There's painting I did. All right, so it's my dad and I. I'm going to go to my new work now. I can just flip through them if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
All right,
Give us
So they're
like
not-
10 seconds.
10 seconds left.
No,
Wait,
give us
give them
10,
to- oh, okay.
10 seconds
Got
of the image.
All right. Some are finished, some are not. But while I'm doing this, can I read a little bit about, I took some notes on what the series of work that I'm working on is, what it is to me right now. Do you mind if I read it?
Of course, of course.
Okay, great. And this is just one aspect of it, but as the paintings are emerging, presenting themselves, and I have that back and forth relationship, I'm starting to notice things. So I'll read what I noticed. I'm interested in the moments that link a constructive thought or idea together to bring you to that realization. The space between words, wherein lies pure emotion, exempt of context or construct until assigned. Complex and mysterious, as it is a place that can detach or form and can be as narrow or wide independently of its conclusive value. For me, this is a pocket of untethered human experience in its purest form. Happening in time as you exist right before the mind's dialogue processes this in a way of categorizing and or naming this space, followed by a conclusion of the experience based on the formed language to which our mind has developed from our past experiences. This could be thought of similarly to a state one may achieve in meditation, hypnosis, or dreaming. I believe this state can happen in the cadence of the psyche, moment to moment. And when it is truly acknowledged as a state and part of our existence, it can be utilized. I feel less like a creator when I'm painting, as I'm not so much interested in recreating something like a memory, emotion, or object, but more like a documentarian or an interpreter of my human existence as I'm experiencing it while I'm painting. So I like to have that like real time experience with the work.
Christina, again, you write very well about your art. That was smart of you to hit us with the heavy stuff at the end of the talk. Get us
What?
hit us with the heavy stuff at the end. You said a lot in there, and you said it very clearly as well.
I might post that too, like, because I know that some people are visual learners, some are auditory, and some are kinesthetic more often, you know, one or the other. But I can post that too on my Instagram, so you can read it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
Sometimes it's good to read it again. Not all of these have great lighting because they're just I'm making these now, so I haven't set up all the lighting and everything that I need. I'll give it 10 seconds.
yeah. There you have an example of where you're really punching the color.
Yeah, this was a smaller one, and I went crazy. Like, I don't care if it's over painting, because like, who's to say it's over painting? If, as long as the composition makes sense and it's not like a free for all. I can tell like if my eye is able to find a place of rest or not. Like, that's crucial. But I do like to push a painting pretty far.
Yeah, like you said earlier about the space between words, the sort of negative space, the quiet blue, and the sort of middle top right. You sometimes need that to stop the swirl and create it. Otherwise, all the motion can blur itself. So, and you do have it. You get your pauses with expressive lines.
Exactly. This was, so like, I paint, like the last painting and this one, a lot of color, a lot of lines, a lot of movement, and there's a lot going on. And then that's one way I approach paintings. I'm seeing as I go, like there's that way, and then there's the way, like I referenced the one that I showed in Brooklyn, where I had arrived at that place where I was really happy because there was more space in between the painting, but I still like painting this way too. So I think like this is almost like more emotional and like a quicker painting, when the other ones are more constructed over a longer period of time. And I think that's why they look different. There's more going on because I made it quick.
Christina, that's a very good and a very complicated painting you have up there. Good use of gray, smart to bring it in. You're not scared to use black. You've used that in the past. Let's end screen sharing. And I do want to ask you the odd question, since you've only been painting since, let's say, 2019. I never asked this, but where do you see yourself in 5 years? What kind of work maybe do you see yourself doing? Or, you know, just give me your vision of where you are with your art.
Okay. Can you
That's
see
fine.
me?
Yes, we're all back.
Okay. All right.
By the way, first, let's thank Christina. Thank
Oh,
you. That was a very nice presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Snaps and claps. And thank you, Mo, for modeling. But go ahead, Christina. What do you see in the future? So it seems bright. It seems bright. You have a,
So I would like to play a role how I can to propel, or not even propel, to keep painting part of our world now. There's so much unknown. There's AI art, there's a lot of undiscovered ways of going about being an artist on the internet and just navigating that world. I'm scared sometimes because I'll hear like painting's dead or something. Well, it's not. We know that. But I would like to be making work, of course, that I'm proud of, which I will always do. I'd rather not paint than make something just to please the masses. So I'll continue creating, continue growing and learning, and really navigating the uncertainty of the digital era as a painter. Because if we don't keep going, and even if we shift as painters and artists, because that's the right thing to do, or the natural thing, or we're all doing it collectively and not even knowing we're doing it, we're all living in this time together. And whatever it may be, although we feel connected but disconnected, that's still what we are. You know, what we can never go back and all live in Brooklyn and be the New York school movement. And, you know, I have friends in the UK, I have friends in Australia doing great work, similar mindset to me as far as the direction they want to take it. And I think just accepting that the movements aren't the same, but I think like we can really come together and keep going as painters. We don't have to live in the past. There's still so much uncharted territory without bringing AI into it. And if that's something someone's interested in, I'm not knocking it whatsoever. I think there's time and place to use it creatively. But for me, I'm just going to keep doing what I feel compelled to do. It's almost like a force runs through me sometimes, and I'm just going to keep painting this time. You know, this is our time as artists. So
Nicely said, Christina.
let's give it our all.
Nicely said.
Thank
Any
you.
thoughts or comments before we wrap it up?
Are you showing in the New York area anytime soon?
I don't have anything planned. My last 2 shows were in New York, but let me know if you hear of anything. I love going to New York.
Absolutely.
I'll be there soon, definitely.
Great.
Well, thank you, Christina. Thank you again. It was very nice.
Much.
It really was. Certainly, you know, often I ask, you know, artists, when did you start art? Invariably, it's age 6 or 7 or 8. There is one artist, Thomas Demick, who was a photographer, started in his 50s. And you're the other unique artist who did not start early, but you hit a very deep level, as Thomas did in photography. And that's why it's somewhat surprising, to be honest. But you know, you said a lot of things that mature artists would say, whether it's the meditation before, or being conscious of the mood you bring, and then trying to paint your mood or your psyche. And then, you know, you have different pulls from the geometric and the symbolistic. Your first 2 paintings, I think the first was symbolistic. We didn't go into your symbols, but I think, you know, often whether you painted when you were young or this is what you did in 2019, these themes will probably play out. You'll treat them differently.
Yeah.
But certainly the commonality will be your brushstroke. That is, you know, the sort of you in the work. But you've got an understanding of composition. I don't know, maybe it is fed by dance and choreography and movement on a flat surface, on a dance surface, or maybe it's just dance. I think like opera singing and music, it's about emotion, and that's a critical element. And so maybe that's what you've brought. You brought the emotion to your works. That's why you were drawn maybe to abstract expressionists. But
Yeah.
either way, what it is, it'll be exciting to see what you do and how you sort of evolve and you know, so coalesce different forms. You could just mine some of those cubist style works you did, and you could do that forever. But I think you're always going to sort of experiment, and it'll be exciting to see.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Christina.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see your work. Okay,
you.
Good to see everybody.
right.
Cool. Loved it. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, let's stop recording. It's,